over fields of green, remembering the faces, the moments unseen, the hands that built a dynasty, the vision in their eyes, echoes in the auction barn beneath an endless sky. This is the bullvine, turn the volume high, for the icons of the ages that never will die. From the show ring thunder to the quiet strength they knew, hear their stories now, coming right on through.
Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, where we dig deep into the stories that shaped the dairy industry you work in today. I'm your host, and today we're taking you back to 1973, to a Pennsylvania barn where one farmer's decision would affect millions of cows you've never seen, in countries you've never visited, for generations that haven't even been born yet. This is the story of Charlie Plushanski and a cow named Faith. It's about the day he said no to more money than most farms were worth. It's about genetics that still flow through your herd today, adding $1,500 per cow in value you might not even know exists. For the next hour and a half, you're not just listening to history, you're living it. You'll stand in that barn, feel the weight of impossible decisions, experience what it means to choose legacy over profit. Whether you're milking 50 cows or 5,000, whether you're in Wisconsin or Western Australia, this story matters to you. Because the genetics Charlie protected in 1973 might be the reason your best cows are still milking strong in their fifth lactation instead of breaking down in their third. So settle in. This is the Bullvine Podcast. And this is the Know That Built a Dynasty.
You stand in your barn on a crisp morning in 1973. The familiar smell of hay and silage fills your lungs as you run your hand along the flank of a 5-year-old Holstein cow. She's not just any cow. She's the kind that makes other dairymen stop and stare when they visit. The kind your father would have called once in a lifetime. You're Charlie Plushanski, and in about 30 minutes, you're going to make a decision that will affect dairy farms you'll never see, in countries you'll never visit, for generations you'll never meet. You hear vehicles approaching your Kutztown, Pennsylvania farmyard. The Holstein industry is booming, and word has spread about your cow. Buyers have been calling, visiting, making offers. Earlier this year, when Pete Heffering was preparing to move his operation from New York to Port Perry, Ontario, he'd inquired about purchasing cattle from top breeders. Now others are following suit, looking for the genetics that will define the next generation. Your cow. Plushanski Chief Faith. The offers being discussed could solve every financial problem you've ever had. We're talking about money that could buy another farm outright, set your family up for years. You think about the mortgage payment due next month, the new milking equipment you've been putting off. Your son Carrie's future. He's graduating from Kutztown Area High School this year. You watch Faith shift her weight in the stall, her massive udder swaying slightly, those genetics worth their weight in gold to the right buyer. You know what everyone expects you to do. Hell, you know what you'd tell another farmer to do. The buyers arrive, their city shoes clicking on the concrete. You can see it in their eyes. They're prepared to pay whatever it takes. The Holstein market is exploding. The 1972 Hanover Hill dispersal just set records. Money is flowing into registered cattle like never before. But here's what nobody else knows yet. Not the buyers, not even your wife waiting anxiously in the kitchen. You've already made your decision. And 50 years from now, that decision will still be adding $1,500 to the bottom line of dairy operations from Wisconsin to Western Australia. You're about to say no. You need to understand what the dairy industry looked like when all this began. Picture yourself in 1945, standing on any dairy farm in America. The war has just ended. You've got maybe 30 cows if you're doing well, each producing about 5,000 pounds of milk a year, less than a quarter of what cows produce today. You milk them by hand or with primitive surge milkers. No pipelines, no parlors, no computers telling you optimal feed ratios. You keep your records in a notebook, bloodlines tracked on index cards your wife helps maintain. Breeding decisions? You make them based on what you can see. A straight back, a well-attached udder, good feet and legs. There's no genomics, no expected progeny differences, no total performance index. You breed to the bull down the road or pay for semen from one of the few AI companies just getting started. The entire Holstein industry is about to explode, but you don't know that yet. You're just trying to survive in a world where milk brings $3.50 per hundredweight and feed costs eat up most of your profit. The average farm has 8 cows. 8. You laugh about it now, thinking about operations today, milking thousands. You flip through the Holstein Friesian World magazine, one of the only connections to the broader breeding community. The ads showcase bulls with names like Sovereign, Emperor, King, Royalty in black and white. But 2 bulls are about to change everything, and the industry is choosing sides. Pawnee Farm Arlinda Chief, born in 1962 at Pawnee Farm in Illinois. You study his daughter's production records and your pulse quickens. These aren't just good cows, they're rewriting what's possible. Milk production jumping 20, 30, sometimes 40% over their dams. The will to milk, breeders are calling it. Chief daughters just want to produce. Feed efficiency be damned. But you also hear the whispers at the county fair, the concerns shared over coffee at the feed store. Chief daughters don't always last. Some break down after 2 lactations. The udders don't always hold up. And there are the stillbirths, though nobody's connected the dots yet on that genetic time bomb that UC Davis will later discover, a lethal mutation that will cause over 500,000 stillbirths worldwide. Then there's round oak rag apple elevation, the bull from Virginia that's creating a different kind of revolution. His daughters might not milk quite as hard as Chief's, but they last. They classify well, score excellent, keep producing through 4, 5, 6 lactations. In an industry where every cow is a massive investment, longevity matters. You're watching an industry divide itself into camps. The commercial dairymen chasing Chief's production, the show breeders following Elevation's type. It's like watching your neighbors choose between Ford and Chevy, except these decisions will echo through decades of genetics. By the early 1960s, you can feel the change in the air. Herds are getting bigger. The guys who used to milk 20 cows by hand now have pipelines and bulk tanks. The surge milker salesman who used to come by quarterly now talks about herringbone parlors that can milk 40 cows an hour. You read in Horde's Dairymen about farms in California milking 500 cows. 500. It seems impossible, but the economics are shifting. Milk prices aren't keeping up with costs. You either grow or you die. The phrase, get big or get out, starts appearing in every farm magazine. This is the world Charlie Plushanski inhabits in 1965 when he makes a decision that seems crazy. While everyone else is picking sides, Chief or Elevation, Charlie's about to try something different. He's going to combine genetics in a way that could either create greatness or complete disaster. You're Charlie Plushanski, and you're building something from nothing in Berks County, Pennsylvania. The year is 1945, and you've just returned from World War II, where you served as a Marine. The stories that circulate about you include tales of boxing matches, using your fists to earn money for this dream of farming. You walk the property line, 120 acres of decent ground, with a barn that needs work and a house that needs more. Your hands are rough from the war, from work, from fighting for everything you have. You've seen things in the Pacific that you'll never talk about, not even to your wife Clara decades later. But standing here, smelling the earth after a morning rain, you feel something you haven't felt since before Pearl Harbor. Hope. Your father thinks you're crazy, a Marine becoming a farmer, but you've always been able to see angles others miss. You could spot weakness, exploit opportunity, see the path to victory when others saw defeat. Now you're looking at dairy cows the same way. You start with 6 cows bought at the Lebanon County sale. Nothing special, grades and a couple registered Holsteins that classify good plus at best. You milk them by hand morning and evening, your hands surprisingly gentle. You've got a theory that cows respond to routine, to calmness, to the same steady presence every day. You're right, though it'll be decades before studies prove it. By 1960, You've built the herd to 40 head. You've married Clara, who keeps your books and asks questions about breeding that make you think harder. Your children are growing, including Carrie, born in 1955, who follows you around the barn with the serious expression of a child who knows he's witnessing something important. You study bloodlines the way you once studied opponents. Spread across your kitchen table are registration papers, production records, classification scores. Clara makes coffee while you trace pedigrees back 4-5 generations, looking for patterns. You're not formally educated in genetics, but you understand breeding intuitively. The breakthrough comes when your brother Henry, who works for Sire Power, calls about some heifers for sale down in Perry County. It's October 1965, and you're standing in Alan Yoder's barn looking at 12 Whirlhill Kingpin daughters. Every other buyer has passed on them. Kingpin daughters milk well, but they're udders. You can see the problem. They're deep, sometimes too deep, attachments that won't last. But you see something else. You see frames that can carry production, width through the chest, that dairy strength your father taught you to recognize. And you think about Chief, about those production genetics everyone's chasing. What if you could combine Chief's will to milk with these frames? What if the udder problems are correctable with the right mating? You buy all 12 heifers. The ride home, your truck loaded with yearlings, you're already planning the matings in your head. Clara meets you at the barn, takes one look at the heifers, and raises an eyebrow. You explain your theory, corrective mating, using Chief to fix what Kingpin lacks. One heifer stands out, born September 1964, a full year before you bought her. 80 Whirlhill Frona. She's not the prettiest, won't win any shows, but when you run your hand along her spine, feel the width of her chest, watch how she moves, you know. This is the one. Spring 1967, Frona's ready to breed. You've gone back and forth on the decision 100 times. Chief semen isn't cheap dollars. $25 a straw when you're lucky to clear $100 a month after expenses. Your neighbors think you're wasting money. Why breed a Kingpin daughter to Chief? Why not use a cheaper bull? See what happens. But you've learned something from your time in the Marines, from battles both literal and figurative. Sometimes you have to risk it all on the decision that matters. You call the AI technician. You breed Frona to Chief. November 1968. You're in the barn at 3 a.m., the way you always are when a cow's close to calving. Frona's been in labor for 2 hours. You've got your calving chains ready, but she doesn't need help. The calf slides out, perfect presentation, and even in the dim barn light, you can see she's special. The calf struggles to her feet, already showing that vigor Chief daughters are known for. But it's her composition that stops you cold. The perfect blend of her parents' traits, Chief's dairy strength with a refinement, a balance you rarely see. You towel her off, make sure she nurses, but you already know. You've just bred Plushanski, Chief Faith. Or on a humid morning in June 1970, watching Faith come into her second lactation. She's already exceeded every expectation from her first. The DHIA tester shakes his head as he records her numbers. 92 pounds of milk yesterday. 92 pounds from a second calf heifer when your mature cows average 60. But it's not just the production. You watch her move through the parlor. Notice how her udder has improved since her first lactation. Higher, tighter, with that perfect fore-udder attachment. Most Chief daughters are breaking down by now. Faith's getting better. The feed bill comes, and you wince. With production like Faith's, you're feeding more grain, buying better quality hay. Clara looks at the numbers over breakfast, her pencil scratching calculations on the back of an envelope. At current milk prices, Faith's earning her keep and then some, but margins are tight. One sick month, one drop in production, and she becomes a liability. Your neighbors start noticing. At the county fair, men you've known for 20 years suddenly want to talk bloodlines. They've heard about your Chief Kingpin cross, want to know if you have any daughters for sale. You don't, not yet, but you're thinking ahead. Faith breeds again, and you make a decision that surprises even you. Instead of breeding her back to Chief, doubling down on those genetics, you use other bulls, diversifying the genetics. You're building a family, not just a cow. Spring 1971. Faith calves again, this time with a heifer you name Plushanski Valiant Fran. Even as a wet calf, you can see she's different from Faith. Where Faith is all about production and function, Fran has something else: presence, style, what the show people call bloom. You're learning something crucial. Faith doesn't just produce, she transmits. Her daughters are better than they should be, consistently exceeding genetic predictions. It's what breeders dream about, but rarely find: a cow that improves everything she touches. The phone starts ringing. First, it's locals, guys from Lancaster and Lebanon counties who've heard about Faith's production records. Then the calls get longer distance. A breeder from Ohio wants to know if you'll sell a pregnancy. Someone from Wisconsin offers to buy Fran as a calf. You say no to all of them. Clara questions this over dinner. Practical as always. The money would help. You need a new bulk tank. The tractor needs an overhaul. Carrie's talking about college. He'll graduate high school in 1973. But you've got a feeling about Faith, about what she could become. You tell Clara you're building something, though you can't quite articulate what. Fall 1972. The Holstein world is experiencing unprecedented change. Pete Heffering is planning to move his Hanover Hill operation from New York to Canada. His Amenia farm lease expires January 1st, 1973, and he's already purchased property in Port Perry, Ontario. The upcoming Hanover Hill dispersal is all anyone talks about. It'll be one of the biggest sales in Holstein history. This creates opportunity and pressure. With major herds dispersing and reforming, genetics are being redistributed across North America. Everyone's looking for the next great cow, the next foundation female. And word about Faith has spread through the breeding community like wildfire. You receive inquiries from prominent breeders, each wanting to know if Faith or her daughters are for sale. The offers are substantial, more money than your farm has grossed in years. You ask for time to think about it. After they leave, you stand in Faith's stall for a long time. You think about the bills piling up, about Clara's worried looks when she balances the checkbook, about Carrie's future. That night, you and Clara sit at the kitchen table until past midnight. She's spread out all the financial records, what you owe, what's coming due, what Faith and her daughters could bring. The math is simple. Selling would solve everything. But you keep coming back to Faith's daughters. Fran's already classified very good as a 2-year-old, the math something almost unheard of. Job Fancy's production numbers as a first calf heifer match her dams. Neil Flute and Mark Fife show promise you can feel in your bones. Clara finally asks the question that matters. Not what's smart, not what's safe, but what does your gut tell you? You look at the numbers one more time, then push the papers aside. Your gut tells you Faith is the foundation of something bigger than money. You're keeping her. While you're making decisions in your Pennsylvania barn, the Holstein world is experiencing a transformation unlike anything in its history. You read about it in the farm magazines, hear about it at every sale and show. Money is pouring into registered cattle like never before. You're sitting in the Kutztown diner, reading the latest sale report in the Holstein world. The 1972 Hanover Hill dispersal has just concluded. Pete Heffering's herd from New York, selling before his move to Canada. Cows are bringing $50,000, $75,000, even $122,000 for top individuals. These aren't just cattle prices, they're investment vehicle prices. Tax laws have changed, making cattle attractive investments for doctors, lawyers, business owners looking for write-offs. Syndication is the new word everyone's throwing around, splitting ownership of elite cattle into shares, like a corporation. You hear about cows with more owners than your local bank has shareholders. At the World Dairy Expo in 1972, you walk through the sale pavilion, watching city people bid against each other for show heifers. The auctioneer's chant reaches numbers that make traditional dairymen shake their heads. These aren't even proven cows. They're buying potential, dreams, tax shelters dressed in black and white. The market's going international too. You hear about Japanese buyers paying record prices for embryos, European syndicates shopping for new bloodlines, Canadians like Heffering building super herds with unlimited budgets. The local nature of dairy farming, where you knew every cow in the county, is disappearing. But you also see the dark side. Herds built on speculation rather than function. Cows valued for their paper rather than their production. At the feed store, old-timers grumble about breeders who don't even milk their cows anymore, just flush embryos and cash checks. You think about all this as you do your evening milking. Faith's averaging 120 pounds a day now in her peak, but she's more than numbers. She's proven. Her daughters are proven. In a market drunk on speculation, you're sitting on actual, documented genetic gold. The calls keep coming. Major breeding operations, syndicates, investors, all wanting a piece of what you've built. Each offer seems bigger than the last. Each time you say no, you wonder if you're being stubborn or smart. The bills don't stop. The milk check doesn't get bigger. But every time you watch Faith's daughters, now starting to have daughters of their own, you see generations of genetics unfolding. It's in this context that 1973 arrives, the year that will define everything. Inflation is eating into farm profits. Feed costs have jumped 40%. The Arab oil embargo will soon triple fuel costs. Many of your neighbors are selling out, their farms becoming developments for people commuting to Philadelphia. You're not immune to these pressures. The mortgage payment gets harder each month. The equipment dealer wants cash up front now, no more credit. Clara doesn't say anything, but you see her adding columns of numbers late at night, trying to make them balance. And Faith? She's 5 years old, in her prime, classified EX94, one of only a handful of cows in Pennsylvania to score that high. Her daughters are making names for themselves. Fran's headed to her first show. Job Fancy's production records are turning heads. This is when the breeding world comes calling one more time. You're in the barn on a morning in early 1973 when the weight of everything crashes down. Carrie's been accepted to Penn State. Your son, graduating from Kutztown Area High School this year, has a bright future ahead. But the tuition? It might as well be $1 million for all the chance you have of paying it. The offers for Faith have become almost daily occurrences. The Holstein market is at a fever pitch. With Heffering's successful move to Canada and his new facility at Port Perry operational, with major sales setting records every month, everyone wants proven genetics. You've been offered substantial money, enough to pay off the farm, send Carrie to college, modernize your entire operation. The kind of money that would let you sleep at night without worrying about the next mortgage payment. You walk through your barn, stopping at each of Faith's daughters. Valiant Fran, showing the elegance that could make her a champion. Job Fancy, whose production records are exceptional. Neil Flute and Mark Fife, younger but equally promising. The math is simple. Faith's in her prime. Her value will never be higher. The market might never be this hot again. Every logical bone in your body says sell. But you keep coming back to something deeper. This isn't just about money. It's about what you're building, what you're proving. That a small farmer with good instincts can create something lasting. That patience and vision matter more than deep pockets. The calls intensify. Offers that would make your neighbor's jaws drop. Partnerships, syndications, every creative financing structure imaginable. Each one more tempting than the last. Clara finds you in the barn one evening, sitting on a hay bale, head in your hands. She doesn't say anything, just sits beside you. Finally, she speaks. She tells you about her mother's house in town, inherited last year. It's worth maybe $8,000, enough to buy time with the bank, keep things going. She's offering to sell her inheritance to keep Faith. Carrie comes into the barn. Your son, 17 years old, tall and serious. He says he's been thinking about college, about the expense. He says he could go to community college first, save money, transfer later. He's choosing the farm over his immediate dreams. You stand there, your family around you, everyone willing to sacrifice for something they believe in. For Faith, for the future you're building together, you make the decision. Faith stays. No amount of money will change that. The word spreads quickly through the Holstein community. Charlie Plushanski turned down a fortune. Some think you're crazy. Others admire your conviction. But everyone's watching to see if you've made the right choice. September 1973. You're at the Pennsylvania All-American show when Valiant Fran enters the ring. You watch her move, that faith power combined with elegance. When they name her junior champion, you feel something shift. This is vindication. This is proof. The offers for Fran come immediately. $10,000 on the spot. You decline, politely but firmly. You're not just keeping cows, you're keeping a legacy. The years that follow prove your decision right in ways you never imagined. Faith continues producing, eventually reaching 242,863 pounds of milk lifetime. She earns that EX94 4E GMD designation, Gold Medal Dam, one of the highest honors in Holstein breeding. Her daughters become the foundation of breeding programs worldwide. Valiant Fran achieves EX90 with 35 superior offspring, the star designation almost unheard of before embryo transfer. Job Fancy becomes a gold medal dam herself. The younger daughters, Neil Flute and Mark Fife, establish their own dynasties. By the 1980s, Faith genetics are spreading globally. Dutch breeders developed the Javina line from Job Fancy, creating cows that dominate European rankings for decades. Canadian breeders work with the Frantisco line from Valiant Fran. Quality BC Frantisco will become grand champion at the Royal Winter Fair in 2004 and 2005. In Australia, breeders like Ray Kitchen at Corenda Holsteins build on Faith genetics. Corenda Pemberton, a Faith descendant, will have 606 daughters in 79 herds. You think often about that decision in 1973. What if you'd taken the money? Faith would have been just another good cow in someone else's herd. Her genetics diluted, controlled by others, maybe lost entirely. Instead, by saying no, you created something that transcends money, a genetic legacy that improves with each generation, a bloodline that adds value to every farm it touches. Charlie Plushanski passes away in 1991, but the legacy continues. His son Carey, the boy who was willing to sacrifice college for the farm, takes over, continuing to breed and develop Faith genetics until his own passing in September 2025. 3 generations of a family who understood that some things are worth more than money. That true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the legacy you leave behind. You're standing in your own barn now, in 2025. You're facing your own impossible choices. Replacement heifers at $3,800 each, an 800,000 head shortage nationwide, volatile milk prices. The same pressures Charlie Plushanski faced, just with bigger numbers. You probably don't think about Charlie very often, but his decision affects you directly. That cow with exceptional longevity in your herd, she likely carries Faith genetics. The bull you're considering from your AI catalog? Check the pedigree. You'll probably find Javina, Frantisco, or another Faith descendant line. The math still works. Faith genetics add an average of 1 lactation, 3.8 versus 2.8 industry average. That's $1,200 to $1,500 per cow in today's market. Multiplied across millions of descendants worldwide, Charlie's no created billions in value. But it's about more than money. It's about the courage to think long-term when everyone else is chasing quick profits. About building something that lasts. About saying no to good opportunities to preserve great ones. You face your own crossroads. The developer offering cash for your land, the investor wanting to buy your best genetics, the temptation to sell out and walk away. Remember Charlie Plushanski. Remember that sometimes the hardest choice, saying no to immediate profit, creates the greatest legacy. Remember that one decision, made with conviction, can echo through generations. The next time you're facing an impossible choice, ask yourself, am I building for today or for tomorrow? Am I creating value or just capturing it? Because 50 years from now, someone might be telling your story. The question is, what will that story be?
You've just experienced the No That Built a Dynasty on the Bullvine podcast. Charlie Plushanski passed away in 1991. His son Carey continued the legacy until his own passing just this September. But Faith's genetics live on in millions of cows worldwide, quietly adding value to farms every single day. The next time you're looking at your herd, check those pedigrees. Look for Javina in the European lines, Frantisco in the Canadian bloodlines. Any of Faith's 4 daughters in the ancestry. You might discover you've been benefiting from Charlie's decision all along. If this story resonated with you, share it with another dairy producer who needs to hear it. Someone facing their own impossible decision. Someone who needs to remember that the hardest choice is often the right one. Visit thebullvine.com for more stories that challenge what you think you know about dairy. Subscribe to the Bullvine podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, in an industry obsessed with the newest genetics, Sometimes the 50-year-old bloodlines are the ones saving your farm. This has been the Bullvine Podcast. Keep breeding better cattle and keep saying no to the wrong opportunities so you can say yes to the right ones. Until next time.
turn the volume high for the icons of the ages that never will die. From the show ring thunder to the quiet strength they knew. Hear their stories now, coming right on through.